Welcome to another edition of the Self-Made Podcast. A little bit different this time because we actually are live in studio with the guest in person, which is really exciting, and it's really interesting to see the logo up on the screen, which is incredible. On this very special episode of the show, we get Andrew Cox from Joint Dynamics on the show. Joint Dynamics is a gym here in Hong Kong that specialises in getting people, I don't want to say pain free, because in the episode he says he doesn't like that term, but moving better, feeling better, breathing better, and performing better. In this episode, we deep dive into pain science. What impact does subjectiveness have on pain? What impact does the brain have on pain? And what can we do to solve this issue? We talk about how he started the business and his views on him being competitive. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We then finish talking a little bit about breathwork and really deep diving onto why breathwork is so important, what you can do to help it, and why does everyone talk about things like breathing through the nose? How do we make this a lifestyle? If you enjoyed the show, as always, please follow us, Simon Kingsley Dutton, on YouTube, drop us a subscribe, a like, and share with your friends. If you're listening via the audio format, please give us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. And without further ado, I will leave you with Andrew Cox from Joint Dynamics. So, Andrew, first ever in-person self-made podcast interview. Really excited for this. The backdrop looks absolutely incredible. How are you doing? How are you finding the experience here?
That's great. I'm doing well, thank you. And I love the setup. And I love your logo. You told me that it's new. It's fantastic.
Yeah, literally just came in yesterday. So, it's been really, really good. So, for people that don't know who you are and don't know Joint Dynamics as the brand, tell us a little bit about what you guys do and a little bit about the business.
Okay. So, my name's Andrew Cox. G'day, everyone. So I'm one of the founders and directors of Joint Dynamics, one of the co-owners. And so Joint Dynamics, in the shortest possible way that I can describe it, because we do a lot of stuff. So it's an integrated wellness facility in the sense we have physical therapy, massage therapy, psychology, osteopathy, personal training, which in itself encapsulates strength and conditioning, athletic development, movement coaching, and all the nuances of movement. And what it is, it's a client-centric model that we put the client in the middle of that. Let's call that an ecosystem. And Joint Dynamics wraps around them. So just say, Simon, you come to us, a classic client journey at Joint Dynamics, you might come to us, I'll just pick, you hurt your back, Simon, doing a heavy deadlift, whatever it is. What's best for you, Simon, is you come and you see a physical therapist. The physical therapist will educate you and rehabilitate you. And then from there, what might be best for you is to go into the gym floor and work with the personal trainers. And you're thinking, wouldn't it be great that if my physical therapist would have a structured conversation with my personal trainer, because they work for the same company, all of our staff are full-time employees, have a structured conversation that the physio says to, just say, my trainer, Ben, hey, physio says to Ben, here we are over here. Hey, Ben, I've been treating Simon now for 6 weeks for his back pain. He's doing great. He's in a good place now. The best thing for him now is graded strength training, so he won't injure his back again, and he's going to rebuild tolerance and add to the confidence that we've already developed. Along the way, if you have a mental block, then Ben will go, well, what's best for Simon right now? Do you know what, Simon, if you would like to, I'm just going to get Catherine, our psychologist, out. She'll just talk to you for 5 minutes, or you can go into her room for 5 minutes. If you think that's the best thing for you next time, just book an appointment with Catherine. Catherine obviously will follow what's appropriate, what information she will share with the trainer, with Ben. Then along the way, you might need a massage, and the client will come to Joint Dynamics. We'll wrap Joint Dynamics around them. Sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? We wrap them. It's a client-centric model. But we have the capacity, I believe. We used to have a sports medicine doctor, but he's recently gone to work for an insurance company. But we have the capacity to meet just about everyone where they need to be met. Along that way, so sometimes, we're all competitive in our industry, I would say. So I was an athlete, and a lot of personal trainers, movement coaches that do similar stuff to us are inherently competitive. So when my competitive nature spikes up, I'll admit that, there might be other physical therapy clinics that are as good as my physical therapy clinic at Joint Dynamics. And there might be other gyms, for example, that are as good as the gym at Joint Dynamics. We have 3 locations. But you know what I think our USP is? And we're at the moment in Hong Kong, I can't speak, but I feel confident at the moment in Hong Kong that our knowledge bank separates us. That's our USP, because the culture at Joint Dynamics is, I interviewed a guy who wants a job yesterday. Great bloke. I'd be so happy if he came and joined our team. And along the way, when we're speaking about expectations, and I said, well, I believe you should come to Joint Dynamics to learn, but along the way, there's a time when you're expected to contribute. So come and fill your cup, learn let's say he's a movement coach, personal trainer. Come and learn from great physical therapists, learn from a psychologist, learn from nutrition, learn from all the things that we offer at Joint Dynamics. Fill your cup, and then after a period of time, when you're ready, let's say 3 months, it's your turn to contribute, because I own the company, but I still want to learn. I love what you and I do, Simon. It's fantastic. So that's the culture. So the knowledge bank that we have, that all of the staff drink from, so to speak, and contribute to, I believe that's our USP. And so via that, I love what I do, and I'm proud of Joint Dynamics. So that's from an individual, who am I to say? But from an individual perspective, I'm proud of the company that's Joint Dynamics. But I also love it so much is because I'm continuing to learn. And I get to hang out with blokes like you as well. How good's this? What a great place.
Yeah.
So that is in the best way. Wasn't very short, was it? In the best way, that would be how I would describe Joint Dynamics. But if I boil it down to its core, we help people, and our strategies revolve around movement, mobility, hands-on soft tissue, and psychology and nutrition, of course.
So in a world where like so many businesses are looking to niche down, they're looking for a particular target market, target demographic, yours stands out for that exact thing. It's all these different industries all within one roof. What is it that made you want to go down that route when setting up the company? Why not going down a specific mobility style gym or a specifically body transformation gym? Why have you tried to be more eclectic in what you do?
That is such a great question, because I've wrestled with this. I still do, to be honest, because I believe from a marketing perspective, if you have a niche, body composition, for example, there's gyms out there that do incredible job of body composition. If you have body composition as your niche, you can market that effectively, and your audience, the public, your potential clients know what you do, and there's no grey. Whereas I'm trying to market diversity. I'm trying to market, I can meet you where you need to be met, Simon, potential client. But sometimes it's a little bit too much for someone to understand and go, hang on a minute, so I can do my strength and conditioning, my rehab, my physical therapy, my massage therapy, my psychology, I can get nutritional advice, all in the one place. First thing is, well, that seems a lot. Second thing is, well, wow, you better have a comprehensive and a big team. Yeah, 76 people, we do have a big team. But why we chose that, so the origins of Joint Dynamics, my business partner Colin, he's an incredible physical therapist. He's probably one of the most well-educated and well-resourced physical therapists that I've ever met. And he's a good mate as well. So how good is that? He started the company, it was 4 people when he started. I had my own company over here, and it was myself, and I had 5 staff. And one day, Colin, who's a physical therapist who was working with personal trainers, and then my 2 other business partners, David and Charlene, we went out for dinner, and they said, hey, do you want to join us? And I was doing my own thing, and I was the master of my own domain in some respects, which is great. But then I just thought, what a great concept Colin came up with. Same roof, physical therapy and personal training. And imagine if I had that, not only could I learn a lot more, but what a comprehensive service that I can offer to someone. So I went into what Colin was the originator of the idea, and I was already referring to him and referring to other physios and osteos. So I had that. I shuddered to use the word holistic, Simon, because it's such a marketing word and it's been got at, but it's such a beautiful word in its essence. So I loved it that it was, I'm going to say it anyway, the holistic nature of Joint Dynamics, and I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to contribute that. Along the way, I've learned that sometimes we went the path of least resistance and followed, there's a great osteo, because a good therapist is a good therapist. There's a great osteo there, and she's interested in working for us. Can we bolt on osteo to physio? Absolutely, we can. You know what? There's a great psychologist who's moved to Hong Kong, and she's interested in joining our team, and we're doing a lot of work with corporates. We sort of feel the missing arm is psychology. Can we bolt that onto the Joint Dynamics team? Absolutely, we can. So sometimes it just happened because the right person came along, and we were malleable enough to go, does that fit? Absolutely it does. And if not, we will make it fit, because she's an incredible human being, which is how the women's health business started as well. And now we're at that point. We have a really good team. And to be honest, at the moment, we don't have a lot of room for growth either. So now we're stepping back and going, well, how do we send out our message? How do I communicate clearly and succinctly? Not doing a good job, am I? How do I communicate clearly and succinctly what Joint Dynamics is to the end user, so the end user knows what they get before they come in. Once they come in, mate, we've got them. This lady that started today, lovely lady, spoke to her on the phone yesterday. Actually, sometimes you get to learn about someone on the phone enough. I understood who she was. She came in for a first session today, and at the end of it, the mantra is, we're going to burn the boat. If you want to take the island, Simon, what do? You burn the boat. If you want to change your lifestyle, this lady wants to change her lifestyle after surgery and all the stuff that's happened. We discussed that, you know what, let's just burn the boat. Buy a massive package. What's best for her, because there's a voice out there going right now, Andrew, that seems a little bit contrived. And 100% is that not contrived, because he's someone that had surgery a couple of years ago, has put on too much weight, is in a culture where her family is saying, you shouldn't look like that at your age. So there's all these outside sources. She's ready. So we just said, look, if you want to go all in, let's go all in. And there's a commitment from us, there's a commitment from you. Part of the commitment that you come back out for is, let's buy a big package, burn the boat, this lady. And so she burnt the boat.
I completely agree with that statement. I remember working in London in a facility that had gyms dotted all around London, around the world. And I worked in the one in Shoreditch, and the results on average were better in the City Gym compared to the Mayfair and the Kensington gyms. And part of the reason why, I think, is because the people that came in, the packages were roughly the same price, but people that lived in Mayfair and Kensington, this was spare change to them. The people that worked in central London, it was like burning the boat. It was scary putting that amount of money down, and you tend to find people work harder when you do that. Sometimes you just need that little bit of scary commitment to go all in on a level of action. I want to kind of go back, though, to that decision to merge with your business partner in Joint Dynamics. And I know you came in as sort of like a managing director role, so it's not like other things, but I'm sure you've worked for personal training companies and been an employee, and personal training industry don't always treat their employees well. So going in and building your own franchise and building your own brand, to make that decision to go back and work even with somebody else must be a very hard decision. Was that a long decision for you to make? Because it shows a little bit about your character where there's no ego in what you do, that you were willing to work with somebody else. Like, how easy was that decision to decide to go, yes, I'm going to go all in on collaborating?
Oh, it's great to do this, isn't it? Get a chance to reflect. You don't do this very often, so thank you for that question.
No problem.
So we went out for dinner, and I didn't know. I was just thinking, he's my mate, I'll go out for dinner with Simo. And part of the way through the dinner, the guy, Colin said, hey, do you want to join us? You know, merge your company and become an owner of Joint Dynamics. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. And the next day, actually, I was off to run a retreat at a place called Kamalaya in Thailand, where I would go, I would train their staff, and then I'd stay there for a week running a retreat for people around the world. It was awesome. So I had that 8 days in Thailand, quote unquote working. When you run a retreat, it is a lot of work, but you get more me time, because I'm not trying to run a business, and I would switch off. So the retreat was for the people that will come with me and for me as well. So I had 8 days to really go over that thought process and what's best for me. I've got a family, so I obviously have to put my family at the centre of everything that I decide, and talk to my wife. And then I reached out. You mentioned prior that you had a few mentors. I reached out to a couple of mentors and asked for their opinion, which was really helpful. But what really made the decision for me was I am naturally competitive, and maybe I used to, which is probably a reflection of there's something wrong with me. I don't know. You know, people say, why is he competitive? Why does he have to prove himself? Maybe there's an underlying issue that I haven't discovered yet. But I am a naturally competitive person, and I'm a naturally curious person. And I sort of thought, well, I think I can get to a certain level with my company. It's going okay. You know, I was traveling around Asia, that's for sure, running education and workshops. I'd work with the Chinese Olympic Committee. I'd work with institutes of sports in China. I'd work with the Beijing table tennis team. You know, on my metrics, I was happy with what I'd achieved, even though I wanted to achieve more. But I actually thought, you know, if I had support, you know, when you run your own small business, 5 people, you end up doing everything. And you end up, so I would do the wages, I'd do the monthly summaries, and those are skills that I never really studied, and I fumbled my way forward. So an underlining statement that I've shared with a few people, and they've asked me that is, you know what, I'm not a businessman. I run a business, and I'm now maybe I would consider myself a businessman, but the vicissitudes of my success is I've fumbled, failed my way forward to learn to be a better businessman, to be able to make better decisions. So when it came back to answer your original question, where I thought, why would I give up something that I've worked so hard? Like, I was working 7 days a week, a labour of love. Sometimes though, I was like, man, I wish I didn't have to work Sunday night to do the wages. But I've worked so hard to build this business, my own business, that I love, and I've got the Four Seasons as a client, and I was doing a lot of work there and travelling around, had good staff. Do I really want to give that up? And if I do give that up, putting my family at the centre and my own growth and desire to grow at the centre, what is the best choice for me? And when I did that, it wasn't even, you know, there was no grey. I was like, well, okay, let's say I own 100% of this business, but if I'm obviously I'm going to come in and not own 100% of Joint Dynamics, I'll come in and own a smaller percentage of a much bigger pie. That if I extrapolate forward, which pie is going to be bigger, to stay on the food analogy, which pie is going to be bigger in 5, 10, 15 years? And I went, it's Joint Dynamics. Where do I feel I'm going to be supported? And that's important, because on the other one I had minimal support. My wife would help me a bit. I had part-time staff helping with admin and stuff like that, but it was really difficult. Where do I feel I'm going to be supported? So I can put most of my energy into 3 areas. So the 3 areas that I ask myself is, what am I good at? What do I love doing? And where can I add value? And when I answered those 3 questions, I went, I feel that, well, I know what I love. I love what we do. I love working with individuals. I love movement. I love getting an opportunity to share and educate and even travel. But when travel was accessible, I travelled a lot, as much as I wanted to teach. I really love that. And there's a value in that. Sometimes from a monetary perspective, I was getting paid amounts of money that made me go, well, that's pretty awesome. I'm glad they value me. And then I learned to value myself accordingly as well. So when I did that, and then I went, what am I not really good at, and what don't I really love doing, and where do I not probably add as much value as someone outside? And that was all the back end, the admin, the mundane that everybody has as part of their job, but I just wanted to decrease my amount, because to be honest, I wasn't that good at it. I fumbled my way forward. I've got a great work ethic. I've got good discipline. I worked my way through, but the systems that I built on the fly, when you showed them to another person, they're like, whoa, dude, it's quite laborious, isn't it? So there was a few arms or a few influences that made me merge with Joint Dynamics and walk away from my company and be an owner of Joint Dynamics. But ultimately, the final decision was, where do I reckon I'm going to get the furthest to be able to do, I'm going to paraphrase it in my language, the coolest shit I can for the longest amount of time. Yeah. And imagine having a company where I can learn from all these physical therapists, where I can learn from osteopaths, where I can have access and learn from a psychologist, where I get, I was doing a lot of corporate then, but now with the platform of Joint Dynamics and a brand that we've all worked really hard to grow and build a good name, it opens up doors where I get access to amazing people. So inherently, I still love to learn. Inherently, I'm always going to be curious. And Joint Dynamics for me was the best place for me to be able to do all that.
You mentioned something very interesting there about almost finding the things that you're good at and allowing yourself to do more of those things. And I totally agree with that, in the point where sometimes when people talk about working on your weaknesses, I almost think that's a flawed analogy. I'm always a big fan of systemizing your weaknesses so you can spend more of the things that make your business run successfully. If you were spending all the time in your business doing all the admin work, your clients wouldn't get the value that you truly can provide when someone can do a much better job of doing that thing, right? I want to go back a little bit though and talk about when you talked about yourself being competitive. You mentioned this is almost like a negative thing. This is something that someone could be wrong with you. Why do you consider competitiveness a negative thing, or do you?
Oh, I don't. But sometimes when you throw out statements, so when you educate or when you give presentations, you have this. The more you do it, my experience, the more you do it, you have this awareness of you will say statements, and to someone in the room, you're going to open a door that makes them go, why would he say that? Or why is he like that? And my experience has been, and I am competitive. So, and I'm cool with that. I'm actually cool. I grew up in a very competitive environment. My father was an athlete, a coach. My father received an Order of Australia medal from the Queen. So my father was very accomplished at what he did, and actually was a guiding light in my life. I'm so lucky to have my dad. Love you, Dad. But imbued in my childhood was don't be soft, and push yourself to become better. And the nature of me, I probably don't have the cognitive capacity to be anything else. So from the chin down, mate, I've got high intelligence. From the chin up, I've got plenty of room for growth. So when you say to me, why is competitive, or why would I suggest that it could be negative to be competitive? In some regards, maybe it can. I don't believe it is for me. But when I say a statement, sometimes I feel I need to quantify. I'm very happy that I'm competitive. I'm now old enough to understand myself better. There was a time when being competitive for me might have been driven from the wrong reasons. I felt I needed to prove something, or I needed to dominate someone, or they don't. I used to say this to myself, and I used to say, you don't deserve to be on the same field as me or in the water with me because you haven't worked as hard as me. So that's my rationale to be able to dominate. You work as hard as me and then we can talk. And you don't work as hard as me. So I used to play all the games in the theatre of my mind.
What changed?
I just got to a certain stage where I went, you need to focus on some... I got to a certain stage where I went, you need to focus on something other than your body. physical intelligence. And that's when I had an opportunity to teach. So I had to go, well, do I keep training my physical body, or do I take some time away and put some other stuff? And when I say training, I was doing qigong, everything for me was kinesthetic intelligence. But then I had this opportunity to teach and travel and run workshops, and I went, wow, yes, I need to be able to walk my talk and move well and be strong enough to a capacity. But I better have a crack at developing myself up here, and there's so many hours in the day, and I have a wife, and I had that stage, I had a very young family. My daughter's now 14. You need to try to expand yourself a little bit, mate. And so step back a little bit. And who knows if I was the best athlete, who knows? But I had a desire to be that. So there came a time when I went, you don't have to be that guy. And are you cool when you maybe go a couple of rounds with someone, maybe you might lose, or lifting, you might get the numbers. And I was cool with that. I was cool with that. But that was honestly a decision that I came to. And the practicality of that was time management, and also forward thinking, do I always want to just focus on my body? You've got this opportunity to teach, and that might open other doors. Imagine going to China, Saudi Arabia, all these cool places to have an opportunity to work with great people and great organisations. Do you want that? Yeah, well, you better sit down and study, mate. Read more books. And so that was the practical element, time management, and then a desire just to open up more doors for myself. Still competitive though, I still want to be the best teacher I can be.
Yeah. Do you think, you must have seen, certainly with the kind of clients that you get, people wanting to move better, they're probably wanting, a lot of guys or girls wanting to do something else. So if you ever listen to Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom podcast, he calls it the menopause, where every guy in their 20s wants to be a bodybuilder. And then when you get into their early 30s, they sort of lose that focus. Do you get people like that where they feel a bit lost in their early 30s when it comes to training and want to do something different? Is that what happened with you when wanting to become an educator? And how have you helped people find that next path?
There's a bit in that one, mate. So, no matter who I train, Simon, I'm training them for today. I'm training them for some growth in the midterm. So let's say a month, 3 months' time. But part of the algorithms that are floating around here that nobody can see that I'm drawing on every now and then to make what I believe is the best decision for that person is I'm training you for 10, 15, 20 years from now. What underpins that? Consistency is the number one thing that will drive the results that you want, whether it be body composition, move better, more energy, enter your desire there. If you injure yourself, you're going to go backwards. And a 12-week program isn't what I'm interested in. A 12-year program is what I'm interested in. And, I've been training this girl, Sarah, who's one of my best mates now in the world, for 17 years twice a week. I've been training Nelson now 3 times a week for 16 years. I've been training Raja, one of the guys that I went to when it came to merging my company with Joint Dynamics. Been training him for 15 years. So I have the gift of working with people for a long time. So when I do get a new client, and I literally got one this morning, you wouldn't believe it. Like, I don't take on new clients, but this person, for whatever reason, really wanted to work with me, so I've made the effort to work with this person. And it was actually really great to work with someone and start with them. This person tried to climb Mount Everest a few years ago, fell and hurt their back. Since then hasn't had the same confidence. They get sciatic and stuff, and we have a physical therapist, and they've seen physios, and now he wants to come and see me. He was seeing a physio from somewhere else. But it's been really great to wind back and go to, well, this is the start, understand what he wants, but it highlights my thought process that, client, we're going to train you for this, and we're going to build tolerance, and in 8 weeks' time, you're going to go climb a mountain again. That's amazing. And then we'll come back and we'll work on the next one. Once you get confidence from that 3-week expedition, then we spoke about it, we'll look at the next thing. So it was really great for me to go over and visit my rationales that I habitually go to. And what highlighted for me was, yes, I'll train you for now. And you feel great after an hour of personal training. Sometimes it's exhausting, but you should still feel great because I create my own verb, joint dynamics, a personal training session. So I'm training you now, and when it's time to train hard, you really need to train hard. And most people, Simon, from my perspective, need to train harder than what they think they need to. You know what I mean? That we sometimes, as individuals, we set the bar a little bit low, and that's why it's great to work with a coach like you, because you can learn about my capacity and my drive, and you can probably take me that extra 5% when magic happens. Whether that takes me deeper into the pain cave safely and I get that great release and I achieve something that I never thought I could do and I just want to hug you afterwards. That was amazing. I love being a part of that. But also I'm thinking, architecturally, what do the joints need? And from a biomechanics perspective and from vectors and gravity and ground reaction, momentum and all those factors that make movement important, how can I wrap that exercise for today and for next month and for that trek in 8 weeks' time for this gentleman? How can I also be doing stuff for him today that means he'll still be training with me in 5, 10, 15 years, that he won't get breakdown? And these guys come to me, my knees, I'm a runner and I just know my knees are going to go, so I just want to get through. And I'm like, your knees aren't going to go. If you can manage your energy properly, manage your movement properly, manage your let's say, help with the foods that you eat, then it's not a sure thing. There's so many. I know people that are older than you that have been running more than you, so why are their knees okay? Yeah. So as best as I can to answer that question, I'm training people for today, for their short-term goals, but I never forget who they're going to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
So you mentioned like training people for where they want to be in a year, 15 years. How do you keep people engaged for the long term? Because I find that working mainly in the body composition route for the last 10 years, it's very easy during a fat loss phase to get somebody engaged. There's a hard deadline. But coming out, if you want it to build muscle, or you're looking at goals of improving movement and pain, these are goals that take 6, 12, 18 plus months. How do you keep people engaged on that long-term process when there isn't that deadline to keep them focused?
You see the smile on my face. I love this I love this discussion, but also this is reality for a lot of clients. If we took 2 people here, Simon, and we said, hey, do you want to do a 12-week program? You'll lose weight, you'll get stronger, and if you make it through it, it'll be amazing. But then can I ask you, after that 12 weeks, and if you have a family, here's who comes to Joint Dynamics often. They've done the 12-week program. They might be running a business. Hong Kong is a business centre, especially in Central where we are, and Quarry Bay where we are also. They have a family, they have a business, and the great thing about a 12-week program, and they're great, and by no means am I saying they're amazing. I just don't do them very well. So there's my inadequacy, everyone. But what's the great thing about that is there's a beginning and an end. And I can connect to 12 weeks from now and go, you know what, I can do 3-4 times a week, and maybe I can do 300 calories deprivation. Maybe I can get through that because I know when the end is, and just say if it is a man, I can speak to my significant other, whether that be my husband, my wife, my partner, my dog, whatever it is that's significant to you. And I can say, hey, I'm going to do this for 12 weeks. Is it okay if you support me on this? If you're single, it's a lot easier, but to prepare yourself, and a lot of people that I work with are of an age where they have families and maybe are high management in a company. So from that perspective, there's a beginning and an end, and I can get through this. After the 12 weeks, and if someone makes it, it's amazing, and they'll get a great result, and they'll probably feel a lot better. Often what I've found is if it is someone who has a partner, the partner will say, hey, that was amazing, you look great, but let's be honest, there's a sacrifice. With their success in any area, we need to acknowledge the sacrifice that we've made, and you have sacrifice on our relationship. And for 12 weeks, that was fine because I know this is important to you. But I actually want to go out for dinner and eat stuff and maybe have some wine with you and not have you looking at the clock saying, you know what, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock, I need to go home to bed because tomorrow I'm in the gym at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. So I want to be able to just cut loose. And I know we cut loose twice in that 12 weeks and it was amazing, but I just need us to be a little more free thinking than that. And you need to spend more time with the kids. Or literal, what people will say to me is, I'm copying some tension at home because on Saturday, when it's my day off, my partner is saying, I have to take the kids to soccer, football, rugby training, whatever. All I want to do is sleep because I trained 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, and now this is my recovery. And my kid's up at 8:30 and they want to play with me, and I'm just thinking in my brain, I'm so tired, but I can connect to that 12 weeks, but I can't make this go on for another 12 weeks. And just say I've gone from 20% to 70% body composition. What's next for the next 12 weeks? Well, 17% to 15%. Well, what's next for the next 12 weeks? 15. You're going to end up a skeleton in 5 years? Where are we going to go? So I'm not saying it can't happen in that capacity. Well, let's connect to something further than 12 weeks from now. Let's actually connect to something that's 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now. Let's go there for a second. What are you going to say to your 70-year-old self? You're going to say to yourself, hey, and I literally have these conversations, so I need to connect to something meaningful that is well beyond in my future. So what are you going to say to your 70-year-old self if you, A, can't get out of bed by yourself, so you're too weak, you don't have the strength to get out of bed? Well, you're going to say to yourself, well, mate, you're probably going to end up in a full-time care home, because what takes a lot of people at that age and beyond, 70 is too young, isn't it? Let's go 80 to need full-time care where they might be in a home is not disease. You know, I can have prostate cancer, and if I can get off the toilet and get out of bed, then I'll still be able to have an independent life. And that's the sexiest gym advertisement. Imagine, here's one gym advertisement. Someone like you, Simon, rolling up their shirt, looking at the camera like that with rippling abs and big shoulders rock. And that's attractive, and that will mobilise me to create behavioural change, so I will pay you money to make me look something like you, so then I might be finally happy. That's our industry. That's ubiquitous in marketing and our industry. Juxtapose that to another type of marketing that shows you again, Simon, at 83, living at home by yourself or with your partner, still being able to run an independent life where you have meaning and purpose. You might still be contributing, you still might be working. For me, that's the sexiest advertisement, and that's a meritocracy, just as abs are a meritocracy. You didn't wake up one day and go, you know what, I've been eating Cheetos for 7 weeks and check out these abs. That doesn't work like that if abs is important to some people. That's a meritocracy, just as maintaining independence as you age is a meritocracy. Maintaining a level of pain-free. I don't buy this pain-free. When you reach your 50s, 60s, 70s, there are going to be niggles, but that doesn't stop you. It's the level of pain that you have. So I'm always so dubious when someone says, I will make you pain-free in your 50s, 60s, 70s. I may experience periods. I'm 49 and I'm still doing all right, and I get to play with my kids and I do physical things that are great, but I have discomfort and pain, but I'm cool with that because I manage it. It doesn't at all inhibit my lifestyle. So how can I give someone that understanding of, yes, you may have discomfort and pain, and all my clients that I work with have some level of pain, but we just do workarounds, So how can I get someone connected to living independently, 83, that's a meritocracy. Strength is the number one thing that you need as you age. Maintaining muscle mass, grip strength. These things in research will say, and I will paraphrase and make it super simple, you will die younger if you lose your muscle mass, your strength, and your grip strength. And that's not an opinion, that's not subjective, that's objective. So when we have these conversations and a client journey, Simon, you might work with me and I'll say, Simon, you're going to pay me to be with you. What do you want for your money? And you might say, well, I want body composition change. I'm currently 25% body fat. I want to be less than that. I want to look good without my shirt on. And I'm like, that's cool. That's great. Ego drives behavioural change. That's amazing. But you know what happens when you work with someone for a period of time and we develop trust and rapport and you get to the point where you go, well, this guy or Joint Dynamics, he gives a shit about me. You know, he's listening to me and he's tweaking according to me. There'll come a time along that journey where you might say to me, you know what, Andrew, yeah, I do want to look better and I do want to get rid of my stomach a little bit. But you know what's most important to me, mate, is having that energy on the weekend to connect meaningful with someone outside of work. Yeah. You know, work is great and it's a big part of who I am and I'm cool with that. But it really chews me up. And I feel that after work, I don't have the energy to meaningfully connect with other people. Like I'll be sitting, literal conversations. They'll say, I'll be sitting with someone and they're trying to have an in-depth conversation and I just find I just can't hold concentration because I have that much mental and physical fatigue from a week of work so I numb myself with alcohol. So I don't want to be that bloke anymore. I don't want to be that lady anymore. Is working with you using movement, breath work, talking about health coaching and all that sort of stuff. Is that going to help me get close to that? If it is, burn the boat, mate. Sign me up for 1,000 sessions. I'll see you here again on a Wednesday in 10 years' time. And that's the literal conversations that I have with people. And another one is I'm a parent and I work with a lot of people who are parents. And in my training, my handwritten training, I'll have a couple of drawings from my kids when they were younger, and I'll look at those photos, Simon. And I've done it that many times. It's almost like a Pavlovian response. I'm not salivating like the dogs, but I have this training journal, and there's 2 drawings from my kids, and I look at those journals, Simon, and I'm feeling it now. Like there's this surge. I would eat a dog poo sandwich if you could prove to me that I will maintain the energy that I can meaningfully connect with my kids. When I get home, my boy's active. He says, Dad, you want to go past the rugby ball? I don't want to be that guy that says to my son, no, mate, I'm too tired. I don't want to be that. I'm not saying that's going to happen 100% of the time. Let's be realistic. But the vast majority of the time, I want to say to my boy and my daughter, of course. And so that's most people. That's most parents. So I can leverage that and say, well, you know what I mean? That your kid means more to you than anything, I'm assuming, speaking to a parent. There's other things that drives people, but parents, I can leverage that in a non-contrived way to get them what they want. So, do you know what I mean? You say you don't like green vegetables? Really? Okay. So let's unpack that a little bit. What are the benefits of green vegetables? What are you risking if you eat green vegetables? Let's unpack this. And why don't you? So, okay, you don't like the taste. Okay, let's start with twice a week. But you realise if you eat cruciferous vegetables, that the numerous validated health benefits of eating cruciferous vegetables that are high in nitrates, arugula, beetroot, for example, you realise if you eat those, that will make you increase the likelihood of coming home from work, my story, coming home from work, and when your child says, hey, Dad, do you want to play? And my daughter says that to me, do you want to play? Absolutely, I want to play. Literally, the act of eating those vegetables will increase the likelihood. What do you want? What do you want? So what can we connect to that is meaningful for you today, whether that be this thing, but this thing is transient. You know what I mean? I'm not going to have this same body in 20 years, but I want a body in 20 years that I can still play with my mates in a meaningful way. So what do you want? Let's talk about it and then connect to it. And I have my programs on my iPad, have these little things that I look at reminding, and I write, that guy, his son, he wants to swim with his son. His son's not comfortable with water, so he's going to be a role model. He wants to swim more with his son. I know if he'll swim more, and I will bring that up at the right time with that person when I feel that he was late today. Hey, dude, seriously, and it sounds weird to leverage money, but I will leverage what I need to. I say, you're paying me to be here, and you know what, we're getting 40 minutes of 60 minutes. I'm still charging you the same. You're not getting your value for money, for goodness sake. So not only for that, for what you want for your kids. So I'll, as best as I can, I'll connect it to now. You're not getting value for money. You're pissing your money away. 20 minutes, we could have done so much cool stuff in 20 minutes. Maintaining muscle, remember, is the number one thing you want to do as you age. It's the number one thing you want for performance, to look better, to burn more calories, to sequester blood sugar out of your body that is toxic and inflammatory. All of those things. Muscle is the number one thing you need. We just took 20 minutes away from 3 hours that we have together. Don't be late, mate. Don't be late. Don't be late for me, because you mean a lot to me and I'm going to give you everything that I can. I'm yours for an hour. Don't be late for yourself. You're pissing your money away. Don't be late for your son because you're going to turn up. You think you're losing that 20 minutes? So I'm getting all excited, aren't I? But that's where I get to with my clients. Mate, I'm so fortunate to work with great people, and even the people that I consider at start are not great people and I struggle to connect with, they're the ones that I learn the most from, and I really work to connect with and make them long term.
How do you have the conversation of sustainability with this? Because you mentioned a few examples there. The client may be able to do a 12-week transformation for 12 weeks, but then they want to be able to go out with for dinner on a Saturday night with their partner. Obviously, when you embark on something, whether it's a fat loss goal, whether it's getting out of pain, there is a period of time where you have to do unsustainable action.
Yes.
And the problem I often find today in the current landscape of the fitness industry, there's this push for everything we do needs to be sustainable. But what is sustainable to that person right now might not be what is sustainable to them in 12 weeks. We want the 12 weeks time sustainability. What do you want back? What have you missed? How do you have those conversation people where, yes, long term we want to find something sustainable, but if you want change, you need to do something that may be more uncomfortable now?
Yeah. I think you've answered your own question almost when you said the 12 weeks. We can maintain something that would be for that person unsustainable for a period of time if you can define it for me. You know, the 5-day prolonged fasting mimicking diet. Whether it's great for everyone, it's not mine to say, but it is good for some people that have a decent understanding of their stress levels and are sleeping okay. So that's 5 days. Do you ever read the longevity diet by Walter Longo? He's this Italian dude who was a musician, and then he found his love in science. And he wrote a really great book called The Longevity Diet. I don't agree with all of it, but who am I to disagree with Walter Longo? But anyway, there's some things that don't sit with me. His protein recommendations don't sit well with me, to be honest, because of, I think, of muscle and other things. But what he did, he did a lot of research into fasting. And, he talked about autophagy, that cellular cleanup that the body goes through when we get into calorie deprivation. And what he did, which was brilliant, he created something called the Prolon, the 5-day fasting mimicking diet. And essentially you decrease your calories to a minimum, and he supports with some supplementation and tea. And when I go into that, I think, okay, it's 5 days. Can I do this for 5 days? Can I take 5 days out of my life? Because this isn't sustainable, but can I live in a way that's unsustainable for 5 days? I can bite off 5 days. Yes, I will do that. So in the short answer to your question is, sometimes we do need to behave in a way that's unsustainable. You know what I mean? To be successful, I'm sure anyone that achieved a level of success had moments of unsustainability up to their zoo, you know what I mean? But from what we do and working in health and fitness and performance and all of the bio-psychosocial element that makes us who we are and what we can achieve, if you can define a period of time, let's map out, I know I'm talking about the Prolon again, there's so many ways, or the 12-week program. But whether it be the 5-day fasting mimicking diet, whether it be the 12-week program, whether it be, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to prioritize sleep, and we've mapped this out that you're going to go to bed 15 minutes earlier each night for 4 weeks. So we're going from going to bed at 1:30 a.m., getting out of bed at 8 a.m. We're going to go to bed at 1:15 this week. Then we're going to go to bed at 1 a.m. next week. We're going to bring it back to midnight, so you give yourself the opportunity for 7 hours of sleep. And if I say let's do that in one night, they're like, well, I just laid there awake, Andrew. It doesn't work that way, but we can call it back 15 minutes. Are you okay to do that? Oh, yeah, I can do that 4 weeks' time, 15 minutes, and then hopefully I've created a new norm. So that's the easiest version, 15 minutes. The 12 weeks is quite a long one, but what's important is we have the conversation. We understand what we're getting into most of the time. 5 days I can do, got it. 15 minutes this week I can do it. 15 minutes the following week I can do it. 12 weeks transformation I can do it. 12 years, what I'm preaching to everyone that I work with, when you find the right levers and you find enough meaning and connect it to their purpose, and everybody's purpose is to... So if I said to you, Simon, everybody here, hey, at 80 years of old, do you want to be an old person's home where you're living in a chair and you can't wipe your own bottom, for goodness sake? Raise your hand up. Yeah, nobody wants that, mate. Nobody wants that. And it's a reality that happens as we age, and it's not 100% of the time, but we increase the likelihood of that not happening if we stay strong and maintain muscle mass.
Yeah.
There's no sure things. I'm not saying that, but we're just rolling the dices, and most people, from my 100% so far, from my experience, want to roll the dice of having an independent life at 80 where they can still have meaning, purpose, friendship, can still contribute. You know, so when you map it out in that way, I can connect to, can I bite off 40 years of my life to be that guy at 80 where I can wipe my own bum? Let's get as raw as you want.
I think that's an inspiring message, because it's things that people sort of put off and don't think about. And the problem I have with the sustainability conversation is that our lives are becoming ever more comfortable. Where if we want food, we can deliver it. If we want a TV show, we can put straight on Netflix. To the point now where people are seeking out ice baths and acupuncture and things that are actually uncomfortable to help them get uncomfortable and push forward in their life. And you said it earlier on, people don't train hard enough. But I think that goes to everything else in life. People don't work hard enough at other things. So your approach to sustainability right now is based on where your current limitations are, which may be so far back from what you're actually capable of that you've never actually been uncomfortable or enough to actually see what you can do. So going into a little bit about pain. So there's a phrase.
Oh, the pain cave! I love this, mate.
So there's a phrase I heard from
ways.
Jordan Shallow recently, saying that we treat dysfunction, we unlearn pain. Would you agree with that statement? And what's your thought process on why people get pain?
Wow, we're opening up the box there, aren't we? Again, acknowledging that we're a biopsychosocial animal. So there's many reasons. There was a great body of research, just to go over here to answer your question. There was a great body of research where they had two cohorts. Both were off work on sickness or disability leave. One cohort, the people at their office called them and said, just say you were the person that was in cohort 1 and I was the person in cohort 2. We both had, let's go back to back pain. It didn't have to be back pain, but let's say we had dis-ease or disease that was strong enough to keep me away from work, and there was an insurance claim associated with that. So we can map it that way. Cohort 1, Simon, people at work were calling and saying, hey, Simon, how are you doing? We really miss you here. You've got meaning and purpose at work, and we can't wait to have you come back to work when you're feeling better. Me, Andrew, cohort 2, nobody contacted me. Who do you think came back to work sooner, and who do you think, quote unquote, got out of pain earlier? Simon got out of pain, according to that research, got out of pain and came back to work quicker. The insurance company's like, holy cow, we're going to get everybody to ring Simon. So there was some meaning and some nature to the research. So again, I've probably said it a few times, but finding meaning and purpose and feeling that I contribute is really important. And that plays a big role in the way that I observe my own pain as well. Because other research says if you have love in your life, no joke, if you have love in your life, your subjective experience of pain is better. So I have back pain, I don't have love in my life, then this is a 10 out of 10 pain for me, Simon, I have to sit here. But I have love in my life. But you know what, this pain, it's probably 6 out of 10. So and the numbers, as in I made it 40% different there. I'm not saying that that's accurate, but the research has shown that if you have love in your life, that ethereal thing called love, your subjective and objective relationship with pain is better. So there's two examples that makes us go, holy cow, my goodness. But now let's say as much as we can on the physical. Can we define what an injury is, if you could? What I in my mind's eye, to break things down sometimes so I can talk about them with more confidence. And maybe because I'm not the smartest guy, I have to boil things down to a level that I understand what it is, and then I can layer it up to where I want it to go. So if we go, what can cause pain? Well, an injury can cause pain. And so what is an injury? Well, an injury is usually in the physical body, is usually associated with a disruption of unity. I had a hamstring, Simon, and it was like this, and now it's either like this or it's totally like this. There's been a disruption of unity in some regards. So an injury is where there's a disruption of unity, and it occurred because forces going through my body. I was running, I was lifting weights, I fell down, there was an increase in force going through my body. The forces going through my body exceeded my current tissue tolerance and my body's ability to adapt. What does that mean? So if I have one piece of paper and I tear it, I put some force through there and I tore it with a measurement of force is in Newton. I tore it with 5 newtons of force. If I fold the paper in 2, what happens then? Maybe it's 10 newtons of force. How do I add tolerance, or how can my hamstrings, say with the hamstrings, how can I add tissue tolerance, strength to my hamstrings so they will be able to tolerate more force? And then we'll come to and my body's ability to adapt in a second. If I ask you that question, you're probably going to say, well, Andrew, if I make the body stronger and I load it with a very traditional exercise called a deadlift, then that's a stimulus to the body. And that stimulus tells the body to go away and increase vascular beds, deliver more blood to that area when the protein that would be associated with blood, to lay down more collagen fibers, because the body is a collagen generating machine. The most prevalent protein in the body, collagen, the body is a collagen generating machine. It doesn't know where to lay that collagen down. It lays it down according to the stimulus, the deadlift. So it's going to say, hey, Simon and Andrew are doing deadlifts. Let's lay some collagen down in his hamstrings, for example, or that back line of his body. So via that, getting stronger, the neurological increase, the neurological sensitivity and the connection to that body increases. So I increase the amount of tissue tolerance to that body so I don't injure myself. And then my body's ability to adapt is proprioception, how well I move. If I move like an athlete, the body will usually tighten up when it gets into a place where it doesn't know how to respond. So in a trained environment, in a conscious environment, I'm going to train you to be able to decelerate, because that's when we usually injure ourselves. We don't injure ourselves going up the hill, do we? We usually injure ourselves coming down the hill. I can teach my body to decelerate a certain movement and then come out of it safely. So that's my body's ability to adapt. That's movement intelligence. So understanding what an injury is and sometimes breaking that down to a person does a couple of things. It empowers them to know that they can get out of pain with training and lifestyle behaviours. And it also gives them a better understanding of their body. Because was that understandable to you when I explained that to you? So, and I've done that to 1,000 people. I've told you once, I've told you 1 billion times, stop exaggerating. But I have said it to a lot of people. Actually, it is 1,000 because I go around and educate a lot. And every time I've broken it down like that and gave the little stories similar, people have gone, oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's what an injury is. And then that's what my pain is caused, if it's physical pain, or maybe it's easy if it's a bone. There's a disruption in unity of the bone. So it's very easy. And then when you go, so they'll go, okay, so there was a disruption in unity. I didn't have the tolerance at that moment. Maybe I was dehydrated is another element. But what I'm understanding, Andrew, is if I train well, adequately hydrate myself, eat good foods, live a lifestyle that's conducive to growth, then my likelihood of injury is decreased. And at this moment, when I am in pain, I can connect to that and go, well, that's cool. Because you know what happens at our place at Joint Dynamics? The amount of time people will come in and literally will say, I've had back pain for 2 years. And I know why, because my mum and dad had back pain. And there's no hereditary nature. It's not in your DNA to have back pain, but they believe that they're not going to get out of back pain. They've had it for so long. And there's this story that says, my mum had back pain, I'm going to have back pain. My dad had back pain. My uncle had back pain. I'm going to have back pain. In no way is that true. And if I can, via a layer of education, hopefully empowerment, they'll go, holy cow. And sometimes, speaking to my physios, a 1 hour conversation and their subjective experience of pain has gone from a 9 to a 3. What did you do? I just spoke to them and gave them the confidence and the understanding that the spine, in this example, it's not fragile. It's as strong as hell, and it can be as strong as you can make it incrementally over time with repetition, consistency. So to boil it down, sorry Simon, to go on a long way, but sometimes you need to give depth to give a more concise answer. Allowing people to have a better understanding of their body, the nature of injury, the nature of pain, allowing them to know that, you know what, sometimes we need to poke the bear. This session today, we are going to take you to your threshold, and it may poke the bear in the sense of you may have some discomfort as a result of that pain. But that's okay. Nothing's broken. You're going to be okay. Okay, that's okay. So they know what's coming. If it comes from left of centre, people are like, oh my goodness, no, it's back. You know? So partly I'll elicit those strategies.
It's interesting you're talking about how subjective pain is, because you also mentioned earlier on about being pain-free and how that's something you don't quite like. And you're using it from an analogy of, as someone gets older, you're always going to pick up niggles as you go through. But I also think that's important with training. And you mentioned that in terms of educating, that sometimes you have to sort of poke the bear, as you said, as regards to pain. I see so many people, they find pain, and pain is subjectively worse purely because of the fact that they're worried about getting pain. The one I always see is deadlifts. People are scared of deadlifts because it's going to hurt their lower back. If I made the front of someone's abs hurt, they think I was the best trainer in the history of the world.
Yeah.
But as soon as I make the back of their abs hurt, I'm dangerous and shouldn't be doing anything. You know, like, so like, is it that sort of speech, that same sort of thing you just said then, that helps clients understand, like, it's okay, you're pain-free is not the aim here, but if it's like 1 out of 2 out of 10 is fine, 3 out of 4, 5, 6 is bad.
Yeah.
How do you approach that when someone's worried about pain or looking for pain, like we spoke about a second ago?
That metric that you just created, out of 10, quantifying out of 10 is really important. And quantifying that out of 10 gives them an understanding of what may come. Remember how I just said, if it comes out left of centre, oh my goodness, I just got a 5 out of 10 pain. Is that okay? I wasn't expecting that. Whereas if you can preemptively say, hey, we're going to poke the bear here, but we're doing it for these reasons, to build tolerance so that you get stronger, so you can play with your kids, mate. Or so, literal story, a lady I worked with for many years, her family would say, let's go out for dinner. She would call ahead to the restaurant to find out what type of chairs they had, so she would know that if she went and sat on that type of chair that she knew, one of them she believed would put her in bed for 2 days, the other one she believed she could walk away pain-free, with less pain, so she could function in her life. That's the level that pain drives behaviour. When you have pain, you look at the world differently. I don't know if you can see my eyes, but you look at the world and you miss so much of the beauty because you're in a constant stress state, thinking, if I go there, is this going to hurt me? If I go on the boat with my kids in Thailand and we go out for that day to this beautiful place, can I do that? And my kids are saying, come on, Mum, please just come with me this time. If I do that, am I going to spend the rest of my holiday in bed? That's what pain does. So we need to acknowledge that, and it's a scary thing. But we need to break it down in small, manageable pieces, incrementally, and sometimes literally in a training session. A deadlift, if you don't deadlift, don't worry about your back if you do deadlift, worry about your back if you don't deadlift. Do you know what I mean? Some type of hip hinge motion. It doesn't have to be heavy. Incrementally, it will be heavier. But we might start on one leg. Stand on your left leg, push your right leg back, and we're standing 80 centimetres from a wall. Reach your right hand to hip height, touch the wall on your left, standing only on your left leg, and then come back and balance. That's a deadlift, a hip hinge. That might be where we start. But incrementally, it serves you to add more load, to build more tolerance, so you can do the stuff you want to do. So that subjective nature of pain is such an important point to run education. Have you heard of Lorimer Moseley? He does a lot of pain research. And he will get people who are scared of their back, and he'll get them in and he'll get them to slouch. So I'm not saying that we do this. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Doesn't matter. I'm not telling you out there, listening audience, to go and do this. I am saying go look at the work of Lorimer Moseley. An incredible scientist and physical therapist. But he will take people into that scary position. But he'll give them the confidence, I'm with you, you're not broken. You have the capacity to heal. You just need to put your body in the right mind. This is a subjective experience. So what I want you to do now is to, instead of being rigid like a board while we're sitting here talking, Andrew, Lorimer Moseley might say to me, I want you to slump forward. And I'm like, whoa, dude, are you sure? My back, I'm going to slump? And he'll say, it's okay, slump. Whoa. Okay, incremental time, and you grow in confidence. You grow in the belief that this isn't my destiny. This isn't a sentence. I have, like every other human out there, I have the capacity to heal from this if I do the right things. Part of that is above the chin and part of that is below the chin. We just need to elicit both.
Yeah. And it shows how much the nervous system plays a role. Like so much
mate.
pain, so much mobility, so much dysfunction is like, my body's not safe in this extra range, so I'm not going to go there. And this is why like great release work it can be phenomenal, but it can open up a can of worms if you don't know what you're releasing, because there's something that is being protected and the reason why your body's there. So this is why like you see people stretching for years and never get out of discomfort, never get out of pain. It's a short-term fix. And I think an element of that short-term fix is because people are not going and getting stronger in those positions, building confidence, laying down tissue, laying down collagen, as you explained before. Going into the nervous system stuff, and this is probably the reason why breathwork's become so much of a buzzword recently, with Wim Hof, Patrick McEwen, and a number of people now bringing this into sort of the mainstream. And you've mentioned it in the show, and you mentioned it in your bio about the body being integrated and things like the breath being important. So before we discuss how people can help with that, what impact does the breath have on people, both physiologically and psychologically?
You know why? As soon as you said breath, I brought awareness to my breath, and I'm breathing through my nose. And I went, you know what, Andrew, while listening to Simon, just put in a long, silent exhalation, and I felt my body go, ooh, yeah. You know what I mean? And then when I go into that, ooh, yeah, maybe slightly more parasympathetic, my other story says, oh, you're going to come into that, use your body more in those executive centres. There's a chance that you might be able to answer some of these great questions of Simon a little bit better. So your breath is a very powerful tool. And there's an educational element to that when we work with people, but also there's a feeling to it. And that's what will drive my decisions to do that more. The reason why I took that breath, which was conscious and control, was sometimes I crave that feeling. Like I crave that, oh, there it is again. Ooh. I crave that. So I will go there frequently. I did 5 sessions in a row today, from 7 to 12. And one of them was online with a lady. And while I was getting to do certain things, understanding I need to manage my own energy, when I had her doing certain things and it was appropriate, I did some breath work where I silently breathed through my nose and I extended my exhalation. What does that do? The nervous system in its simplest way that we can sort of I can do my best to explain it. There's a sympathetic and a parasympathetic. Remember, the sympathetic is the fight, flight and freeze response from the nervous system, and then the opposite side of that is the parasympathetic, which is the rest, digest, regenerate part of the nervous system. And we want to flow through both, but we just don't want the throttle always on, like many people in a modern world where we have access to work and then great podcasts and then the news, which usually the news isn't that good. I can stay in that sympathetic fight, flight, freeze part for a period of time that is detrimental to my health. I can live there for far too long.
And allows you to be in that state where you're all hunched up, as you spoke about earlier.
Yeah, which will affect my breath, which will affect my nervous system, which will affect my muscle tension, which can affect my blood pressure. There's so many things. So the breath is a really powerful tool that costs nothing. So there's a benefit. People link it to someone's wallet because short term, holy cow, that saves me money. I've got to breathe. It's very effective. Is it a skill? Yes. Are you going to feel what I just felt, that feeling that I'm craving again, if you give me 30 seconds, that I crave frequently? Maybe that's a skill because I've practiced a lot, because I love it so much. Are you going to feel that nice feeling that you can get with breath work immediately? Maybe not. But the more you practice it, the more you will get there. And what we can say is that if you just use your breath, your breath, it's almost like a voice to your nervous system, your nerve, to the vagus nerve, the wandering nerve that controls so much of my gut and the way that I'm perceiving the world. If I breathe in a pattern where, let's say I inhale for 4 seconds through my nose, it's important, and we'll talk about the nose in a minute. If I inhale through my nose for 4 and I exhale out of my nose for 6, so the exhalation is longer than the inhalation. That is a stimulus, an input to my nervous system that says, hey, let's go over here to the rest, digest, regenerate. Everything's safe. We're cool. We're amongst friends. For goodness sake, just relax. And ooh, there's that nice feeling again. So your breath is an input to the nervous system. So that might have been education for someone. It's understanding that the breath is the stimulus to talk to your nervous system. So when you are feeling stressed Or how about this? Let's change it for a second. Let's anchor to a behaviour that you're going to do all the time. Simon, do you eat food every day? Okay, this world of fasting. Hang on, Andrew, but let's just say most people eat every day. Let's say it'd be 1, 2, 3, whatever, 5 meals, whatever it is. That's not the conversation. But how about this? Let's just anchor 30 seconds. Do you have 30 seconds a day? Remember, you got to give something up. Unsustainable. 30 seconds. Actually, that's sustainable. Andrew, can you give me 30 seconds when you sit down to your meal, put your phone away for 30 seconds or put that thing away, and all I want you to do, 3 rounds. Breathe only through your nose, in for 4, out for 6. So we're anchoring it to something. We're leveraging existing infrastructure, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Can you do that? Yes. Okay. Are you going to get it every time? Probably not. But I'm going to see you on Thursday, and I'm going to ask you again. That's my role as your coach. And I might even send you a WhatsApp, and I might even ask you to put a reminder on your phone. Whatever it is we need to do to make that happen. We're building reps. We're building the skill. It feels great. Is that the stimulus to take you from sympathetic to parasympathetic? Absolutely. Is that the stimulus which will allow you to extract more nutrients from your food? Remember, fight, flight, freeze, that down-regulates with chronic nature, down-regulates your immune system, but it also down-regulates your body's ability to absorb nutrients from your gut. Whereas over this side, parasympathetic, you will extract the nutrients a lot more effectively than if you're stressed. So there's another reason why to do it. Okay, 30 seconds, that's not that long, really, is it? So I'll do that. So you leverage existing infrastructure, you link it to a behaviour that we're always doing. I'll double check on you. That's my role as a coach, or whoever it is will double check on you. And so now we've been doing that for a couple of weeks. If you want to, you can download that app. You know, there's some Headspace, these great apps that will help you as well. But where the magic happens is when you've done the reps, and it doesn't take long, honestly. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't take, you don't need to sit on a mountain for an hour and not move. If you want to do that, that's amazing. But you'll start to get it. And I just got that feeling again. No shit. That's how much I love breathwork. You'll start to get that feeling, and that's what drives behaviour, mate. We don't drive behaviour. I can know something, but whether or not I do something is another thing. But if I feel something, if I'm disgusted from something, I'm not going to do it. If I love something, if I feel, whoa, this just feels right for me, the likelihood of me doing that again is increased. Our role is to find a way to let them have that feeling, because that's what drives behaviour. Rational thinking, breaking down sympathetic, maybe that's a great story that can lead to the start and finding a sustainable 30 seconds to start with, or an app. But once you feel it, that's when you get enrollment, or that's when you get buy-in, compliance, whatever it is. That's what we want to create.
If someone's got a dysfunctional breathing pattern, there are issues with the
don't we?
Expansion. Yeah, well, most people do, right? And there's the expansion of the rib cage. There's posterior expansion, or that sort of like bucket handle expansion. I always find, this is my issue. I find with the breathwork advice is that we do so many breaths a day, so we're going to do more bad reps than good reps. So I always think with breathwork drills, sometimes it's a little bit like trying to piss in the ocean, trying to make it yellow. How you're not going to get anywhere near the repetitions needed to outweigh the bad repetitions. So how do you encourage someone who maybe is further down that path in terms of not either one, not prioritizing it, or two, that their mechanics aren't working well, there's a lot of conversations going on. How do you create sustainable change in that system when they're going to do more bad reps than good reps? Yeah,
that's a great point. So just say as dudes, and I can say dudes because the research, we do about 15 to 16 a minute, and ladies do a few more.
Why is that?
That's an overall cadence. It's a generalised cadence of I breathe in. Let's say I breathe in for 2, I breathe out for 2. For example, that's 4 seconds. There's 4 seconds into 60 seconds, 15 breaths a minute. That's what the average male does according to a body of research. We actually want to get people to decrease that number. We don't want to take 15 breaths in like a dog. We don't want to be the dog. We want to step back and take less breaths. So in order to get more, you need to do less. You're like, hang on a minute, you better need to quantify that for me. Okay, let's try education for a little while. When I breathe in, what's the role of breathing? To simplified, I'm going to breathe in, take oxygen out of this stuff out here and attach it to something called blood in here, the iron particle in blood, and then it's going to pump out, and my muscles and organs are acutely dependent upon blood flow and the oxygen and nutrients that it brings. Okay, cool, got that. Next thing is, let's look at the breathing mechanisms of the human body. So I've got a nose. Let's breathe through our nose mostly. Can we, people? When I breathe in here, so I've got a nose, and simple terms, I have a windpipe. Got it? I've got a nose, I've got a windpipe, and then I've got lungs, and that's where the magic happens in the lungs with the blood and the iron and the oxygen. So there's what's called the dead space, the respiratory dead space. And who cares about numbers? But let's just say a total breath is 4, and then the dead space is 1, and then 3 gets into the lungs if I take a full breath. The ratio is not that, but just to make it super simple. So the first 25% of the breath, my breath being 4, doesn't make it into where the oxygen attaches to blood, and then the next 3 gets in. So that's a 4-second inhalation to get 3 seconds of the good stuff happening, oxygen, blood, and then all the other stuff. But what if I only breathe in for 2? So now I get 1 breath in and then 1 attaching, so only 50%. So as opposed to 75% of the breath being effective for my muscles and organs, now only 50%. So if that's a measurement of milliliters, if I breathe in 100, then only 50 mil will get in. But if in one breath I breathe in 200, then 150 gets in. So if I breathe less times, if I breathe 10 times as opposed to 15 times, I'm breathing less repetitions in a minute, but I'm breathing in a greater volume. The first part of every breath doesn't do the stuff that's magic. So I can either take 50% of a breath or I can take 25% of a breath. If you take 25%, 10 breaths in a minute, as opposed to 15 breaths in a minute, you're going to get more oxygen. And that's the science of breathing. Nose, windpipe, lungs. There's other fancy names for it. But once I understand that, I'm like, holy cow. So I'm doing this shallow breath. I'm hardly getting any oxygen attaching to blood, and maybe I'm not getting out the carbon dioxide as best as I could. Hang on, what if I have this story, this algorithm, this rationale up here that's saying if I breathe in for 4, 3 of that breath is going to make me have more energy. It's going to, my oxygen, my brain is expensive tissue. It's going to absorb at least 20% of the oxygen that I breathe. So do I want to give it 20% of this? Do I want to give it 20% of that? And the answer is I want to give it 20% of the second version, because while my brain's just gone, oh, hello, where you been? I'm not so tired anymore. So there's many stories based on science that can connect to a subjective feeling of well-being that will make me go there again and again. And if I do it before, if I leverage existing infrastructure, I'm going to eat. Okay, 30 seconds, mate. Give me 30 seconds. Then download that app. Then with all my clients at the end of every session, I say, let's go to the beach. Why do I say go to the beach? Because that's my happy place. I might say to that guy I started this morning, hey, let's go to the mountains. But we stop the session with a period of time, 1, 2, whatever minutes before, but let's say very rarely I'll go beyond 2 minutes, and we'll do conscious breathing, where I'll literally say breathe through your nose, breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. I'll give them a massage on the power plate for their calves. I know it's going to feel good. I'm talking their emotions. I want you to like this, so I want you to do it again. And every one of my clients, at least 3 times a week, then is getting that subjective experience of, and they'll say to me, and my language will be, how did that feel? And they'll go, well, that feels great. In my head, I go, the likelihood of you doing that again on your own is increased. So how about you do another one this afternoon at 3 p.m? Okay, cool, I will. And then I'll send a message or set a reminder.
So for people that don't know, why the nose? Why are you breathing into the nose?
Great idea. There's more filters, which is pretty simple. No filters going down there. There's all these hairs. But also...
And that'd be like resistance training for the breath, essentially, right?
Yeah,
the
cool.
diaphragm and the muscles have to work harder.
Yeah, that's one reason. Another great reason is nitric oxide. So that scientist, Louis Ignaro, I think it was, he won the Nobel Prize for his discovery of nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is this magic little gas that is in our body. And when I breathe through my nose, not my mouth, when I breathe through my nose, the breath will tickle receptors and pick up little sacs of nitric oxide and take them down into my lungs, and then it will come out into my body. What is nitric oxide? It's a vasodilator, not a vasoconstrictor. When you're cold, it's cold, I constrict. It's the opposite. It's a vasodilator. When you have a vasodilator, that's why beetroots. Remember the research from when the English did so well in the cycling in the Olympic Games in, was it 2004 or whatever it was, when London Olympics happening, and then that research came out afterwards. 16% better output when you're smashing beetroot juice. Beetroot's high in nitrates, which is a vasodilator again, which means I will be able to get more blood in, more blood out quicker, and I can deliver more nutrients and get rid of more waste products. That, in that research on cyclists, equated to a 16% increase in power output. That is pretty significant. Holy cow. So when I breathe through my nose, not only are you tickling those receptors that say, hey, I'm safe, I'm home amongst friends, parasympathetic, but I'm also picking up nitric oxide, taking it down, and that vasodilator action can have the capacity to decrease my blood pressure. Can have the capacity to make me deliver blood flow better. So there's another great reason to breathe through my nose. It also the turbinates and all this cool stuff behind my nose here. It if it's cold air, it warms the air to make it more friendly for the lungs. There's 1,000 reasons why, and sometimes we leverage this. Who do you want to look like, Simon? You ready? Or do you want to look like this guy?
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? And what do the movies leverage? The movies will leverage the person that will be of a decreased intellect, will be the person that's the mouth breather with potentially the overbite. Who do you want to be? So if I leverage that, I'll leverage that. Who do you want to look like in the short term? Shut your mouth, not being rude. Shut your mouth and breathe with your nose. For all those reasons.
So to close, I've asked a final question before we talk about where people can find you and that sort of stuff. In your bio on the Joint Dynamics website, there's a phrase that really interested me that I thought there had to be more to this than talking about movement, although I knew this was part of it. You went, confidence in the small things leads to confidence in the big things. Unpack that a little bit more for me, because I think that's something that's probably not just about movement for you.
Well, bit of depth to the answer, okay? Do you know what? It sounds almost weird that I would bring it up, but in the world we live in today, mate, I find we have so much, look, a podcast. I can learn so much from you via just listening to your podcast. So there's incredible podcasts out there. I've got a podcast as well I've interviewed some amazing people. So people that don't work in health, fitness, wellness can get a level of education that's incredible. It's amazing. So what I find is, people have a layer of education that's, let's say, an inch deep, 2.5 centimetres deep, and it's about 500 metres wide. I've narrowed that, and I've gone maybe, probably me, I've probably gone 10 metres wide, but I go 500 metres deep, because that's just, I found something that I love, and then how can I quantify that? Well, I'm also listening to podcasts. I'm also studying, probably doing more study in this narrow area of life, what we do. But I'm in the trenches seeing people. I've been doing this for a long time, so I get to test theories and build intuition and understand research, apply research, and see how it sticks, get compliance. So that sort of underpins a lot of the decisions that I make. So when I say confidence in the small things leads to confidence in the big things, one of those things, it's seemingly innocuous for me to say, Simon, I want you to work on your breath. Breath, something as trivial as breath, and it is trivial because we do it 15 times a minute or whatever it is if we're a male. But it's not trivial. It actually leads to big things. If you breathe, let's go back to that 30 seconds before your meal, leveraging existing infrastructure, a behaviour, we're anchoring to an existing behaviour. That 30 seconds becomes a minute and it grows. You start to get that feeling, you start to do it more. It's breath, but physiologically, I'm in that parasympathetic, rest, digest, regenerate, meaning I recover better from my workouts. I absorb nutrients better because of digestion. I come into the part of my brain where I can actually look around and there's no fear, and I'm going to leverage, I'm going to be curious by nature more so because of my breath does that. And there's no debate there. There's no debate. Call me on it. It's true. You can find it. It's there. Even if you do have that thin layer of a lot of stuff because you listen to podcasts and read books like we do, except we've got the depth. So that's a small thing. And then really where my mind also goes is internal rotation of the hip. What the hell do you mean internal rotation of the hip? That's a seemingly small thing. But if you lose that motion at your hip, there's relationships with the body that the hip is your lower back's best friend. And 80%, according to research, I'm on the conservative side of research, 80% of us will have lower back pain. What does that mean? It will greatly distract my life. It's not measuring, my back's a little bit sore, Simon. It's a day in bed, a day off work, a day distracted from what I would normally do. So that's back pain. That's the level of back pain to make that statistic. At its most conservative, 80% of us will experience back pain over our lifetime. And if you're in the 80%, you have it once, the likelihood of second increases again. Screw that. You know what I mean? Who wants back pain? Not me. If you've had it, it's fine. Rehabilitate yourself, you'll be fine. But if you don't want it, and I don't, then the way your hips function, it's small. Can your hip move forwards and backwards, side to side, and in rotation? In particular, in rotation. Okay, because why? Well, the structure of the anatomy of the lumbar spine, it doesn't move very well in rotation. The lumbar, the bottom 5 segments. Cumulative, according to Stuart McGill from the University of Waterloo, cumulative, we have 13 degrees of rotation spread out across the lumbar spine. So that's 2 degrees, 5 degrees, 2 degrees, 2 degrees, adds up to 13. That's not a lot of rotation. If I lose internal rotation of my hip, for example, which is, I'm speaking fast because I'm excited, that's how you load the posterior hip, the most strongest muscle in the body, the gluteus maximus, for example, thick and strong. Internal rotation lengthens that muscle out, which turns on its proprioceptors, which upregulates its activity, which is a way to make it able to produce more force, so I perform better, so I decrease my likelihood of injury, and so I protect my back better. It's seemingly a small thing for me to work on, controlled internal rotation to speed up that internal rotation, but it's a small thing, but it leads to a massive thing. So the on its surface, it's very small. Well, it's small things lead to big things. But mate, when you go down 500 meters, there is so many layers to that seemingly innocuous statement. And you and I can unpack those 500 meters. Most people, nothing wrong with being a generalist. Absolutely not. I'm just not smart enough to be a generalist, probably. So I just found something that I love and I drill down. The generalist will say, small things lead to big things. Oh, isn't that nice? You said something small, you said something big. Oh, that seems very cool. I wonder what that means. Doesn't matter. I got 2.5 centimeters of it. Whereas you and I go, you want to unpack it? Do you think it's a small thing to breathe? Yeah, it's small. Okay, let's unpack that. Do you think hip motion is small? Hip flexion, that internal rotation. The internal rotation will light up your pelvic floor muscles and all that other stuff, which can then lead to diaphragmatic breathing, which can then lead to compressing the abdominal organs for your spine to press on, because your abdominal organs play a role in stability. That means I can lift heavier because of my breathing, because of my pelvic floor, because of internal rotation.
And it's that small thing when you get to the bottom of a squat, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's going to go.
Yeah.
It's going to be that small thing you didn't work on is the reason why you didn't hit your personal best.
Yeah.
And at the small essence of it, that is the small thing affecting the big thing directly.
Yeah.
In what we're doing. So
I got 500 meters of the small thing affecting the big thing. And then I just draw out the meter that I need to connect to you. In this, remember, my narrow of expertise, my field of expertise is quite narrow, because I probably don't have the capacity. Thank God, don't ask me about crypto. No idea. I don't even understand how it works. You know, but inside this narrow field, I've spent a lot of time working with individuals, studying, teaching, playing with myself, doing it. You know, so in this field, I've got the 500 meters. But I don't have 500 meters in any other world. But then, on this 500 meters, the small things lead to the big things. And what small thing do you want? I'll unpack them all for you, according to what I know.
So for people who want to learn more about you or come in and be part of your 500 meters and get this sort of integrated health approach, tell us about where people can find Joint Dynamics, both online and in person.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. And thank you for letting me come on. This has been so much fun.
Pleasure.
I really had a great time. So Joint Dynamics, we are in Hong Kong. Obviously, in the world of social media, we have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, so you can find Joint Dynamics there. You can find our website at www.jointdynamics.com.hk, Hong Kong. We're in Hong Kong. You can find me. My name's Andrew Cox. You can Google search me. I'm sure I'll come up somewhere. But I also have Facebook, Andrew Cox. I have Instagram that I don't use very much. I'm not very effective in social media. It distracts me a little bit. Maybe I'm someone that's easily distracted. So there's another weakness. Unpack that one. I don't do social media that much. But I will share what we do on Joint Dynamics because that's meaningful to me. And then, mate, if you're in Hong Kong, just yell out. You know, well, don't yell, Andrew. If you're in Central, I might hear you and find you. But coming in, and I've got my own podcast actually, the Joint Dynamics podcast. It's fun, like, you know, it's so refreshing to have a fireside chat with someone where you remove distractions and we dive in and share. Like, how cool is that? So you can find me on my podcast as well.
I absolutely agree with that. It's so rare that we have deep conversations. You go to any restaurant here and people are looking down at the phones and looking up to have the conversation and back. And certainly during the pandemic, it's one of those things where one of the good things that, even though it broke so many people apart, it meant that having a conversation like I have with you today could be achieved just as easily through Zoom with somebody. Yeah. Or it's open doors to meet people and have deeper conversations with people I never thought I would do. And I'm an absolute pleasure to have you come in and do the first in-person show. It's been really, really good, and definitely I've learned loads of this, so thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Simon.